After not releasing 2 times over, once in December of 2021 and once in March of 2022, now here in April of 2023, we've finally done it. We've survived the wait. Advance Wars 1+2 Rebootcamp is finally out, and, not unimportantly, can no longer be taken away from us. But how good is it really? Well, as a certified Advance Wars nut, we're diving into all the details today to find out if this collection is worth your time and your money. Today's video will once again be mostly spoiler-free, so whether you're a veteran thinking of returning to the battlefield, or a new recruit readying up for the fields of glory, you will hopefully get what you need out of this video. In Advance Wars, you follow a story of war that doesn't take itself too seriously. The implications of the destruction of battle, the casualties, the injuries, are all left quite ambiguous in favor of focusing the story on the commanding officers and their interpersonal relationships. While this may be a little jarring at first, it's probably best to remember that throughout it all, this is supposed to be a game kids can play. In Advance Wars, you take control of a commanding officer on the battlefield, directing units on a grid in a turn-based fashion. If you're familiar with games like Fire Emblem or even the indie game Wargroove, you'll probably feel right at home with this game. The goal of the game is remarkably simple and almost never changes on any mission. Either beat all of the enemy units, or take their HQ to wipe them out instantly. The road to these victory conditions can be a harsh one, as getting to them absolutely relies on strategy as opposed to your typical RPG fare, where numbers can dictate the field of battle much more easily. In this game, each player uses effectively the same, let me just put a giant asterisk right here, units, and knowing the strengths and weaknesses of said units is key to knowing how to respond to any situation, and how your opponent may react to you. Each unit can hold up to 2 weapons, and they will automatically swap between weapons to fit the situation better. So let's take a good example. The infantry, the tank, and the mech units. While the infantry and mech fight the same against each other, the mech actually carries anti-tank missiles with them as well, giving them a little bit of an edge over tanks compared to the infantry units, who are otherwise just very similar to them. The infantry does not handle tanks very well. They don't really deal a lot of damage and take a lot of damage in return, though not for a lack of trying. The tanks are able to deal good damage against the infantry and mech, as their machine guns are pretty good at dealing with foot soldiers, and their armor won't take a lot of damage in retaliation. Speaking of which, don't expect to get off scot-free in battles either, as enemy units won't just take shots lying down. If you engage in battle, you will still be shot at and incur damage, but not as much as normal, as you will take the first strike, and damage units shoot for less. If a unit is only at 80% health, their effectiveness will only be at 80%, so of all these factors, always try to get the first strike in any skirmishes, as that may be the key to gaining the upper hand. Sometimes, actually a lot of the time, your units will die, and it's best to incorporate this into your plan. Luckily, you can replace them fairly easy in factories, as long as you have the money. For each building aligned to your faction, you gain a bit of extra money per turn, so it's important to get an advantage over your opponent by literally becoming richer than them. You can capture neutral cities before your opponent does, and even steal their cities in order to cripple them financially. Another key to victory is knowing the commanding officers. Each one may grant various bonuses or penalties to certain units, such as Max, who, as his muscular design suggests, is a close combat specialist, or Grit, the long-range expert who does the exact functional opposite. By knowing the details of each commanding officer, you'll have a vague idea of what your strategy is going to be going in. A Max player may go for the frontal assault, while the Grit player may turtle into a corner and amass a massive artillery force to then slowly creep up forward. In a one-on-one setting, this can make some tight matchups and battles that can really test your mettle. Whereas in a 3 to 4 player free-for-all, this may just increase the chaos that ensues on the battlefield, as it may start getting really difficult to remember who does what, when there are 4 differently labeled tanks on the battlefield. Finally, some maps will have limited visibility called Fog of War, making information warfare key. For this reason, it's important you cover as much ground as possible so that you can view as much as the map is necessary. Different units have different visibility ranges as well, giving even more incentive to purchase certain units over others. Outside of the story mode, there are several other modes for you to enjoy. In the War Room, you can play even more maps with any of the COs you've unlocked thus far, including those that are enemies in the campaign modes. You will be graded after each battle, so trying to go for all the highest scores may keep you busy for a long while. In Versus mode, you can play against computers and other players locally, on the same switch or with several switches connected together. In this mode, you can change the settings to match Advance Wars 1 or 2, play with randomized weather, inflated money gains for maximum chaos, or even a turn limit, allowing for custom games tailored to each specific player. If possible, I would recommend playing with Fog of War only when players each have their own screen, as screen peeking can and will occur, though that may add to the fun depending on who you're playing with. You can also design your own maps to play in Versus mode and share these maps online. New to Advance Wars 1 and 2 are online play, in which you can play Versus mode online. In the online mode, you can play with people on your friends list exclusively, and while that's not much of a deal breaker, it's definitely annoying that even in 2023, Nintendo still tries to shy away from matchmaking, even if they've literally done it before on an Advance Wars game on DS. A bit of a shame, but otherwise, a really good mode, but held back by functional problems. Being a turn-based game, this is where Nintendo's usually shoddy netcode doesn't make too much of a difference, as players aren't able to interact with the game outside of the turn, and as a result, there's no reliance on having the game perfectly synchronized at all times. Thankfully, I haven't been disconnected yet either. Unfortunately, one annoying thing about the game is that the game only supports 1 versus 1 online, and only on very limited maps. It's a bit of a shame, really, because the online could have been so much more than this, but unfortunately just gets neutered from Nintendo decisions. The Advance Wars Rebootcamp duology is a great recreation of the original games with a lot of love added to it, but do I think the price tag is justified? I want to say yes, because while you can argue these are older games, the fact remains that they've been rebuilt from the ground up. All assets have been painstakingly recreated for a modernized 3D look, and script changes were done where necessary. While it does remain a bit unfortunate that the online play is very limited, only letting you play on specific smaller maps and only 1 versus 1, I don't think this is necessarily a deal breaker for everyone. But that being said, if you're just getting this game for the online play, it might end up being a deal breaker. So should you get it? You probably have made your own answer by now. If you like this video, make sure to press the like button, maybe press the subscribe button if you're at it. I make more videos than just this one, I promise. And until next time, I will see you around, but bye bye.